Hi, Emily. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I am so happy to connect with you today.
Thank you, me too.
Let me introduce you in few words. I met you in a hospital where we work together, and we did this really fun program a year ago on alternative health remedies, starting from yoga, nutrition, rehabilitation. Also, we talked about marijuana, but I want to concentrate on nutrition today, and you couldn't be any better person. You know, your choice came immediately to me when I was thinking that I want to do some of this curiosity driven videos. And Emily is a nutritionist, and she specializes in diet for in elderly population, and she really does it through her work from day to day, but also promotion of well-being through the understanding of neurobiology of a nutrition. Does it sound fair, Emily, to introduce you like that?
Yes, it does. Thank you for that great introduction.
Okay, great. So, we just chatted for a few seconds before we started about how both of us are dealing with COVID-19 related issues, and how much each of us really experiences it differently. And before we start, I have just few questions for you. I want to keep it nice and light and relaxed and learn, of course, here. But what did you notice anything in the nutrition field around the pandemic or COVID-19? Did any trends emerge or something that people talk about?
Well, in particular in the ICU setting, critical care, I mean, that was a hot topic when this first came out. It still is. We're still learning. It was really, quite interesting figuring out, what do the patients need in that critical care setting. And it was interesting how a lot of the patients deteriorated really quickly and
Yeah.
ended up having, um, pulmonary failure, they had kidney failure. So you're dealing with all of these comorbidities with our patients. And also, pair that a lot of them were morbidly obese. And so their nutritional needs were very much different than, the
Yes.
typical, even the typical critical care unit. So, they need a lot of, high protein because they're in just a hypermetabolic state.
Hmm.
And our obese individual also, they, when they're in critical conditions, their body actually breaks down their muscle before they break down their fat for their source of energy, so they need
Yeah.
even more protein.
Hmm.
But then what came out too was a lot of, some really new research trying to figure out, can nutrition help, heal
Yes.
us from COVID? And a lot of research came out regarding vitamin D, vitamin
Right.
C, zinc,
Yes.
which is sort of the typical, supplements that you would hear about in really dealing with any, fighting off any virus or bacteria. Those, vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc, we know helps improve our immunity. So I wasn't surprised to hear
Right.
about those vitamins.
And I remember during our meeting last year, you were talking about these microelements and how important they are for production and for our energy to feel, energetic, to be able to exercise or care about our fitness. And thank you so much for these comments about critical care, because as you know, this was very spontaneous because I don't know if I was going to ask you about that, but taking us back on, like the home level,
Mhm.
did you adjust anything in the diet in relation to pandemic and, staying home? A lot of people work from home. I go to office, you go to office, but, there are family, our loved ones staying behind and kids. And how do you feel we all adjust to that? And how do you particularly adjust to that? Do you have any choices that you make mindfully in regarding to eating?
So, when the lockdown first started, right after St. Patrick's Day, my husband got laid off. So I was like, this is perfect. I still have to go into, work every day, but now you're home. So, now's the time for you to get in the kitchen and do some cooking. But that didn't last too long because his cooking is, not up to my standards. He's like, how about hot dogs and French fries for dinner tonight? And I'm
Oh
like,
no,
oh no, let's not do that.
no, that wouldn't
So
work out.
no. So, I took the cooking back over, which is fine because I love cooking. But, really started focusing on even more fruits and vegetables in my diet,
Yeah.
even more whole grains than
Hmm.
normal. And it was really interesting too, because, especially when the shutdown first started, what I noticed going to the grocery store, the produce was perfect. Nobody was touching it. There was always plenty of
You're
options
right.
to choose from, but it
Yes.
was all the meat that was being sold out and was really difficult
Yes.
to find. Um,
Yes, and we still talk about meat. Nobody talks much. They just started a little bit about farmers and how they cannot sell
yeah.
their products. But you absolutely brought a very interesting point that this healthiest stuff was still available. But
Mm-hmm.
you also brought something unexpected to, I think, this conversation that you said, my husband works from home, so it's a different setting. And I am sorry to hear about your husband, but also it brings me to the reality of a current situation that there is this work from home, but also people who don't have much choice. They have to stay at home and possibly
Mm-hmm.
contribute to cooking. And there may be too many people in the kitchen, but also that brings some financial consideration or choices. When, let's say, 6 months ago, you could, okay, we'll just decide to do something healthy because we just made this decision. And this decision, I
Mm-hmm.
feel, are driven by necessity a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. And, typically when I grocery shop, I always grocery shop based on sales. I always try to find, the best
Yeah.
prices. And during this time, I find that that's difficult. I'm not going to go to multiple different grocery stores getting the best price. But what I've also found too is, the grocery stores aren't having the sales that they used to, especially on produce, I feel.
No.
So now I find, especially with families that, might have one person laid off or maybe two
Yeah.
individuals laid off, I can see where people might find that eating healthy is even more difficult at this
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
And another aspect that staying at home is, and we can't go easily to the gym or for exercise. We try to walk. There's going to be some changes in regulation coming soon, but I think also there is a tendency, at least in my case, I just put all my worries in ice cream at like 10 p.m.
Yes.
And I mean, I always loved ice cream. There's nothing new, and I allow myself those snacks because I think it's just generally healthy in moderation. Is balance is important.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's partially driven, but like you just eat and you force the thoughts behind. You don't want to face it, certain things. And what do you do? Like, do you have any tip how to, okay, limit those moments or choose something more healthy than, ice cream or just other snacks and
Yeah.
potato chips, for example?
No, absolutely. I feel our connection to food is emotional. Some people, we have healthy connections to food, and some people, are cope by eating food. And I'm the same way with ice cream. If I'm having a bad day, I would love some ice cream. And my husband brought some home the other day, and I was like, don't bring it home. It's if it's out of sight, out of mind for me. So,
Yeah.
in particular, when I'm grocery shopping, I try to grocery shop, definitely when I'm not hungry, because then I know
Yes.
I'll definitely make better decisions. If I'm hungry, everything looks good and I'm just going to buy it. So for me, it works like out of sight, out of mind, but then also, um, what I think about is, right, kind of recognizing the emotion that you're feeling, like that anxiety or that stress that you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
or even anger,
Mm-hmm.
you know, over this situation, saying, okay, this
Yeah.
is how I'm feeling. Will eating this make me feel better?
Mm-hmm.
And no, it won't. It might make me feel better in that moment, but,
Yes.
you know, if I'm in a better mood, then I'll actually be able to enjoy that food more. So you know what? I'm putting that back because I'm angry over something or I'm anxious. So let me recognize that emotion and really, you know, really own that emotion, not try to sort of you know, ignore it or push it
Mm-hmm.
to the back
Mm-hmm.
by trying to use food as a coping mechanism. So for, you know, you mentioned exercise, and, you know, one thing that I've done during this is, you know, I would always go to the gym and do yoga. I mean, those were my
Yes.
outlets, and then that was taken away.
Yes.
I downloaded the Peloton app. It was a free
Oh, wow.
90-day subscription,
Mm-hmm.
and they have running, they have yoga, they have meditation, and I really felt like that has helped me
Mm-hmm.
manage, you know, my stressors during this
Mm-hmm.
time.
Well, that's very interesting. You know, just before the pandemic really started, and my New Year resolution was join the gym and do it a little bit of a family thing, you know, so we do
Yeah.
exercise together. And, you know, it's very hard to fit in a schedule, but I really fell in love with water Zumba class. And I only took advantage of 2 months of it. And, you know, it's not every day. It was once a week
Yeah.
when I could make it to the very evening class. But I loved it so much. And I love the feeling. And, you know, this kind of classes, this is out for quite a while. So I see, you know, what you said, that, you know, there are some substitutions and online classes and other resources. And that's, you know, that's really good. And I really enjoyed what you said. And I think that you really, you know, capitalizing on what you said that you're doing about neurobiology of the nutrition, because I feel that when you analyze my very unhealthy ice cream anxiety or maybe anger, you know, I like
Yes.
I'm hitting the ice cream with a spoon and
Yes.
burying my worries in it, in vanilla with some chocolate, you know. But that's very interesting, like to take a moment to pause and, you know, to realize our feelings before we just start indulging on anything that's in the freezer. Emily, I think this is fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I want to do it again. um,
Yes.
any final thoughts, anything you'd like to share? Maybe something with kids in mind, so our youngest
Hmm.
members of our families, of loved ones.
Well, I think, you know, we're all home now. You know, this is the perfect time to get the kids involved in the kitchen. You know, some of my fondest memories growing up was baking with my mom and cooking with both of my parents. So I think these are the times where, you know, life is slow now. So let's try to find that silver lining and enjoy the time with our kids, and, you know, bring them in the kitchen and teach them some great healthy recipes. There's actually another website called eatright.org, and they have some great recipe ideas
Hmm.
for kids. So, you know, I would definitely
Eatright.org.
yep, eatright.org. So I would encourage parents to go there and check out some really easy recipes to do with your kids.
Awesome. Well, I really, really enjoyed it, Emily, and I'm so glad that we reconnected. You know, you know, we can't meet in the hallway like we were running or around the lunchtime. I would say that few times, you know, in a month we would meet, and it's always so warm for me to see you in the hallway. And when we open the hospital back up a little bit, you know, there will be less, you know, now even to get to the hospital is a challenge because, you know, obviously the entries are limited from obvious reasons. But thank you so much for agreeing to do that. I really enjoyed it. As always, I learned from your knowledge, and it's fantastic. And I love having you as a friend. And I wonder if I could invite you back one day.
Oh, I would love to be back. I'm so honored that you asked me. I was so excited when you did. So this was so much fun. I feel like we could talk, for hours. So I would love to be back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily.